Hello, folks. Welcome to Pro Trader Strategies. This is Spotting the Trade. I'm Eric Wilkinson. What I like to do in these videos is talk about the economic data, look how that's impacting the overall markets with some market analysis, and ultimately end up talking about some option strategies that I've implemented in my portfolio or taken off for that matter. So if that sounds like fun to you, subscribe down there at the bottom there. There's also a little bell that you can click on to make sure that you get a notification when I come on unannounced. During earnings season, I might just do that later on in the day. These are pretty scheduled in a way. I did wait a little bit today because I wanted to make sure we were coming on time, but I covered a trade almost immediately on the open to talk about with earnings trades. So, if I'm putting on a bunch of trades, I will pop on here and talk about that live. But this was just taking off a trade. And according to my guidelines, I did exactly that, covered it right on the open. All right, so without further ado, let's talk about the economic data. Across the pond, not a whole lot going on over there. We did here in the United States, though, get our new home sales coming in at 740,000. That's higher than the expected 712,000. And they revised last month's number up by almost 21,000. So a huge beat on the frontline numbers for those new home sales, giving equities a little bit of a push higher today, but we're going to talk about that. It is still looking like we're setting up on that head and shoulders in the NASDAQ and in the E-mini S&Ps. Also some headwinds for the Dow Jones, for the Dow Jones Industrial Average today because Nike came out with earnings and was basically their earnings call was all over the place, pretty much pointing towards China and the supply chain issues, but they don't have supply chain issues in China, and their sales there were not doing very well, and nor in Taiwan. So a lot of those things were a little bit of a head scratcher for Nike. I didn't trade it. I talked about it yesterday in the daily market or in the Spotting the Trade that I was going to stay away from Nike because of those supply chain issues. Now, something to note, when I was getting ready to do my earnings trades, I was looking at Costco and going through a few things and realized that Costco has a few hundred, I think, of these ships so they're shipping their own stuff from China. And that is why you're not probably seeing the empty shelves at Costco because they actually are shipping in. Now, remember, like something like Walmart, they have other people buying for them and putting it in their store. So they're not like Costco where Costco is doing the shipping. So something to note for Costco, something I didn't realize, they aren't going to struggle as much with that supply chain issue as something like Nike would. But having said that, the earnings call for Costco was actually really funny as he started listing. Well, we're only having a few headwinds with shipping constraints, and literally for like 10 seconds went down this list of COVID related stuff in China and blah, 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 blah. It was pretty funny. Anyway, we'll talk about that here in a minute. So let's share the screen and get on with talking about these markets. We've got crude oil moving a little bit higher here today. That's going to be a product of demand. Right now, we're starting to see these economic data points level out a little bit. I don't think that we're going to see massive growth here, but that is giving some folks the idea that there is some demand there for crude oil. Now, we are heading out of the winter months. We are heading summer months and heading into the winter months. So we are going to see some demand through that through heating oils and stuff. But I think that we are going to see more of this due to travel as people are going to be starting to open up. We're talking about travel restrictions lifting a little bit with the vaccination cards that you can travel back and forth. Well, now that we're opening up with Europe has started booking in the casinos in Las Vegas. So it looks like people are going to start traveling a lot more this winter as summer's starting to wrap up here. But let's take a look at a couple of other markets here. We've got the bonds continuing to move to the downside, down another point. Folks, I've been expecting this to stay in the 160 handle here. I do not think that they are going to start tapering at the end of this year. I think it might start happening at the beginning of next year, going into the spring possibly. And I don't necessarily even see a rate hike in 2022. So I think the bonds coming off is just an opportunity to buy, to be quite honest. It might want to dip back down to the point of controls here, folks, but that I think is a bit of a stretch. I think we're going to stay up here in this 160 area. But I don't have any positions in the bonds. Gold futures trying to get a little bit of a push to the upside, trying to help out my GDXJ trade there. Remember, I'm short puts there. Now, something with Bitcoin, it's having some struggles here as across the board. Any crypto-related stock, ETF, or future, and the actual crypto itself are all pretty much down today. Why? Because China came out and said that crypto and any related business is illegal in China. All right. So, folks, now that seems like a bit of a shocker, thinking China isn't going to allow that. But you think about what is going on in China right now. Remember, it started with Jack Ma, WeWork, and then Baidu, and why am I coming up with that? Alibaba. It started out with Alibaba, and it's kind of all started rolling here, where China is really starting to lock down. We saw Macau. All right, the casinos, you have to steer away from any gaming operation. So they really want control, and something with the cryptocurrencies, they don't have control. So they've been complaining about that for quite some time. They gave the miners the opportunity to get out of Dodge. Remember, we talked about that several months ago, how they were shipping operations here to the United States, Texas, Wyoming, Montana, all of those places. We're seeing some of these operations, like we're talking tens of thousands of machines coming over. So that wasn't really a surprise. For some reason, the cryptos are crashing a little bit today. I think Ethereum is the one to be involved in, folks, going forward, just because that's the one that's been the biggest transactional type of currency for all of these NFTs and things like that. Excuse me. VIX is a little bit higher today, but not really much, as we're seeing a lot of the equities in negative territory, almost retracing all of yesterday's rally. That was all they were talking about yesterday, was how we were rallying, got above the 50-day simple moving averages, all that stuff. Well, to me, it's kind of similar to what we've been talking about here. This is building out this shoulder on this trade. So we're going to keep our eyes on this, as it, some people might call it a dead cat bounce or something like that. But the idea here that I've been looking at is we've created a neckline here, and you've got your shoulder, your head, and we're building out another shoulder. So as long as this shoulder does not go higher than the head, we've created that shoulder, and that and then when you break down, you have to break through that neckline, all right? And that would make me think we're going to really rip down to one of these areas, maybe into this trend channel, but at least down into this kind of area if it creates that head and shoulders for that measured move to the downside on a head and shoulders pattern there. All right, so then we go over to the E-mini S&Ps, the Dow Jones, let's do. It's right at the point of control. A little bit, most of this weakness, I think, today is due to Nike's crummy earnings and not very good forward guidance. They said the demand is there. They're just having problems with the supply chain issues. And a company as big as Nike should be able to pay up a little bit, especially the way that these shoes are going through the roof on some of these. Pay up for one of those cargo ships coming over here to the United States. How about? But Dow Jones Industrial Average, remember, we're seeing some weakness across the board in some of those other, like the tech sector. Well, we're probably going to see some strength here in the Dow Jones. Keep in mind, some of this weakness today, most of this weakness today is probably due to Nike there. All right, E-mini S&Ps, again, very similar to what we were talking about before, creating this shoulder. We've got the head, and now we're creating the new shoulder here. This neckline's not very great, but it is what it is. You'd have to break through that for that to really happen. I think we'd probably get down here to the point of control and settle down. I don't think we're going to have a massive correction by any stretch of the imagination at this point. And then let's break down the E-mini S&Ps. Overnight was pretty quiet. As a matter of fact, actually selling off as yesterday's rally. I think it was just basically some longs covering there. Coming into the day session, we got the good economic data that existing homes or new home sales numbers were really good. So that is giving us a little bit of a boost today. Lack of volumes, it's probably going to slow down here today. I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of market action throughout the day. Keep in mind, Powell is going to be speaking today. It's probably talking right now, actually, and really all he's doing is getting grilled by everybody about his investments. I mean, he had munis in his portfolio, folks, before he became the Fed chair, and he didn't get out of them. And they come in and start buying assets. I mean, really, there's bigger fish to fry. If you want to go after somebody for like front running trades, let's look at the senators who are actually talking to this gentleman about this type of investment. It was crazy. Talk about pot calling the kettle black. All right, Intel. We've got Intel going on here with this trade. Remember, I did the straddle on it. It's a short straddle that we took advantage of high implied volatility on this trade. I was trying to take advantage of that here. Selling the straddle, we'd expect it to stay right at the point of control. Well, it's popped around a little bit, which isn't unexpected. That's what we would expect here. But it has popped back up to that point of control, and we've got the volatility coming out on this. The reason why I'm mentioning this, I have not covered this, but the reason why I want to mention this is because you folks, we are at 30% of max profit on this, because remember, I did this in the October basically sold the 55 straddle, all right, which is basically selling the 55 puts and the 55 calls at the same time, at the same strike. And I originally did this, I'm doing this off the top of my head, but I think it was like $3.25. Right now, it is trading right around $2.15 to $2.20, I think was the last I saw. Anyway, that's a third of max profit here. $3.25 would be max profit. Now, keep in mind, when you're doing a straddle, folks, max profit is almost unachievable. It would have to literally settle 55 on the very last day. So one thing with straddles is they take a very long time to decay, right? Because the fact of the matter is they're right there at the money. They're going to be seeing their premiums juking back and forth, and volatility is affecting those the most. So we will benefit, though, when the volatility comes out like this. And that's what's happening with this. There's no directional move here. We are getting this volatility crushed. That's what we're trying to take advantage with this. Yeah, a little theta decay there, but really what we're talking about is about 5 to 7 percentage points coming out of this in volatility. And if I just click over to the volatility on Intel here for this trade, the volatility coefficient on Intel, what month am I at? In October, is 26 right now. So, let's just say when we first did this, came off 5 percentage points, the delta theta, let me get over there. 3 times about 7. So we're talking about 21 cents, 22 cents, something like that coming out of this trade on both sides of the calls and the puts, remember. So that's about 40 cents helping me out with this and that theta. That's why we're in the October, we're getting that ramp up in theta. So all of those things working in my favor. Theta is about 3 cents a day there. All right. So that's what I've done in Intel. I'm just keeping an eye on that. But if you jumped on that and you are a newer trader, I would suggest that this is the time to start covering that trade, because you're at 30% of max profit. Newer traders, lower risk tolerant folks, that's what I would suggest for a straddle. I'm going for 50% of my max profit, and I'm going to be out. All right. So I actually even had it with a working order yesterday. I'm not really doing that today. I don't have anything in there right now. Wynn, keep in mind, I've sold some puts in here as well. We had the high volatility. I wanted to go into Wynn, sold some puts in here. The reason why I'm talking about this is because we got that boost to the upside, not quite at 50% of max profit on this trade, but tailwinds for Wynn. They were talking about, they are doing fantastic. That's why I talked about the, opening up. They're seeing already reservations coming in from Europe. So I think that that's turning the table. They're also talking about their profitability, like I talked about with Caesars. They've streamlined processes. They are seeing all kinds of folks coming in there through the doors, not necessarily staying overnight, but they're gambling. And, they probably got a lot of the government money handouts that folks were just going in there and rolling the dice on, I'm sure. Just my thoughts, just my theory. All right, I don't know why I have Intel up here again, but let's go to Costco, because that's the trade that I did for the earnings. I talked about I was playing Costco to the upside. Another thing that really solidified that was the fact that I realized that they have their own ships and their own cargo containers. That's another big thing right now, is what to do about all these cargoes containers that are actually full, but they're part of the whole supply chain issue. Think about it. From China, they're sitting on the docks because there's no ships to pick them up because they're stuck over here in San Diego off the coast with their anchors in the ground, all right, or in the water. So the cargo shipping container issue is a big deal also. Think about this with here in the United States with some of the trucking issues that we've talked about recently. Well, those truckers aren't pulling the containers off of the docks fast enough. So they're stacking up once they get delivered. So the cargo container shipping issue is a really big deal, folks. That's probably a bigger story than just the whole shipping issues. All right, so Costco coming out with great earnings, great forward guidance. Talked about had the funny little quip about all of the headwinds that they've had, but still battling through it. Again, here we with this trade want to take advantage of that massive drop in volatility. That's why when I talk about these earnings trades, we set them up according to certain guidelines that we don't necessarily do for other regular trades. And in that, I went into the options with the nearest duration in the September. So I went into the September, sold the 440 puts in there for $1.31. I think, sorry, I'm all over the place today with trying to figure out what my Costco, $1.31. Well, bought them back for 20 cents this morning. I think I paid the high of the day. I had that order in there before the open and thought it probably was going to be about 20, 25 cents on the open. Well, it was at 20 and then at 10, at 8. I just waited a couple of seconds. But anyway, out of the Costco trade, just a funny little thing. Sold those September 440 puts. So that's in the weeklies. These are the weeklies, right? Weekly, I never know how to spell puts for $1.31. Bought them back for 20 cents. High of the day, I think. Woohoo! You bought the high, though. It's great when you sell the high. It's not great when you buy the high. Anyway, all right, so out of that, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Before you go, make sure you smash that like button, feed those bots, send those guys out there to find somebody just like you to enjoy this video, right? Comment over there at the side. I'll make sure I circle back around for you folks if you have any late questions, comments, or anything else. And finally, make sure you subscribe, folks, and hit that little bell right there next to it so you get the announcement when we pop in here unannounced, because I'm going to start doing that more often. All right? When I get that trade, I want to be on here live with you folks. So make sure you subscribe. All right. That's all I got for you. Have a great weekend. And if you can't take that, take it easy.